Welcome everyone to the special session of council for the town of Greater Napanee on the 15th day of April 2024. Just before we call the meeting to order, I'd just like to remind everyone that this morning's evening is being live streamed via our YouTube channel, and it'll be played on our YouTube channel and be there for a long time. If anybody isn't able to watch it this morning, they can pick it up this afternoon or anytime after that. So welcome everybody, and we'll get started. Having said that, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Shank, seconded by Councillor Pennell. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Moving directly into the agenda, the first item on the agenda is the Council Advisory Committee's annual review. I know we've all had an opportunity to read and to look at it. Madam Clerk, did you want to weigh in on the review, where we'll start with?
Through your worship, this is the report that was provided to council on March 26th before there was a decision to hold this special meeting to discuss all of these matters more in depth. So this is just provided again for background information, but there's no new information in this section.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody on council would like to discuss this report? And if not, I think probably at some point we may refer back to it, Madam Clerk, if that's okay, as we move through the discussions with the agendas. So, but is there any questions with respect to the report that's in front of us right now? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to note and receive the Council Advisory Committee annual review. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Great. And we will be able to refer back to it if we need be over the course of the morning. So next up, we'll start off with the Market Square Advisory Committee. And Madam Clerk, did you want to weigh in any on this at all, or will we maybe let Councillor Pennell start?
Through your worship, I believe the councillor and the staff liaison may want to speak to it.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Or no, so we'll start with Mr. Zetterberg and then we'll go to Councillor Pennell if need be. So thank you.
Through you, your worship, before we, Councillor Pennell is going to speak on the mandate letter in itself and the direction of the committee. Before that happens, I just want to give an update on the town hall renovations. Those are supposed to begin at some point early to mid-May. And also to an RFP going out for, or RFQ going out for some of the landscape work that needs to be done, including the front steps. As you know, the renovations of the Market Square will generate more of the interest for the mandate for the committee. We've already had a group or a couple of people come forward who want to do a series of art galleries on the main floor. The committee is going to review the CIP plan. They already have had a copy of it, but have not had any discussion on it. And as far as a vendor's market, that's all part and parcel of the renovations of the building and the interest that will generate.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Zetterberg. Councillor Pennell, did you want to go from there?
Thank you, through your worship, Mr. Zetterberg. Thank you very much for that report. It's good. It's going to be exciting times when scaffolding is erected around this building. It's going to add a lot of hype to the town, and a lot of people are going to be glad to see that we are taking an interest in this building and to preserve it. The committee meets well. We meet on a regular basis, and we have a great bunch of people that are all forward thinking. And I don't recommend any changes to our committee whatsoever on this. As Mr. Zetterberg said, there's still lots for us to do on the existing mandate letter, and I don't recommend any changes to it, as we still have lots of work ahead of ourselves.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Does anyone from council have any questions or comments with respect to the Market Square Advisory Committee? Councillor Hicks.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. Dave or Brant, will there be any drawings or renderings? Like, do you have a vision in mind for the landscaping? I mean, the building is what the building is, and we know that it's going to be repainted, thankfully. But what do you have in mind for? You'd mentioned taking over a couple of parking spots, proper flagpoles. Do you have a vision? that we can see, that you can share?
Through your worship, there are drawings from, they actually go back quite a few years for the Center Street portion, which we had given to a couple landscapers just to get a sense of how much it was going to cost. So yes, there are drawings. As far as the work on the front of the building, there are not. For the steps, there's no drawings, but I would suspect that those drawings would have to be done by the landscaper, whoever is assigned the work. We have a general concept of what that would look like. And any drawings for the, from the front step to John Street have not been completed. There are previous landscape designs that go back a lot of years, and I think it's probably best if the committee has a chance to voice what their vision is for the function and the use for the market square at the front, because that has obviously changed since, I mean, it's evolved obviously over time, and it's a people place, but the fountain, for example, takes up quite a bit of room. And is there a chance to create a larger venue for more people to be able to use the front?
Yep, thanks, Councillor Hicks. Thanks, Mr. Zetterberg, and go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, just to add to that, it'd be something that when the RFP goes out and the committee would like to meet with the landscape people to see what their vision is, and then come up with a quote and report back to council as a design and go from there. So it's kind of like a blank canvas right now, but we'd like to just see what the feel is and what can be attained. Especially like as we just mentioned about the fountain, how much it takes up and have open space. I can just see this. I'm all tongue tied today. I just would like to see what the RFPs would bring out to it. So other people's imagination and see if they capture ours as well. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Councillor Shank.
Yes, Brant, if you could explain to everybody because when everybody's saying that they're going to be, this hall is going to be painted, about the brick and what you had your samples on the side here and what they're actually going to do. Because when they say painting, is everybody going to paint the whole thing white again? But no, I understand, but if you could kind of explain it to everybody understands what they're going to be doing here for painting.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, there has been discussion in the past about taking the paint off, so the town hall would be its original red brick. But what happened through the years and the evolution of the building is that there had been windows closed up, there had been doorways and archways closed up, which means that the bricks doesn't match, and it's been painted since the 1920s. So the idea is to, and rather than just painting it a solid color, is that the painter that we will probably be going with will do a faux brick. So the building will look like red clay from a distance. But at the same time, while the painter is on the scaffolding, looking at doing the wood trim, any trim that needs to be replaced because of rot will be replaced at that time. But the idea is that the trim will still remain the white color that it is.
If I understand it correctly, there's a couple samples that were done on the side. Oh yeah, over on that side. The one that shows the brick, that's what you're going with?
Correct. It's the red brick, not the sand color brick. Yeah.
Yeah, that would look good. And because of the pointing too, because when you peel it off, from what I understand over the years, is that with all since 1920s was painted, if we went ahead and sandblasted or took it all off, well, you'd lose a lot of that mortar, and then the whole thing would have to be repointed and everything else. So just the red brick, I think the red brick would bring it back to its natural look, and at the same time have a little bit of longevity. Is there any type of warranty that's going to be with that when they painted it? Wasn't it 10 years or 20 years or? And what was the cost of that? So are we going to factor in that every year that if it's going to be, if it's going to cost $100,000 or what it is, or we're going to put 10 years, $10,000 every year. So in 10 years time, we can keep it looking good. Not that we get to the extent that we are now, that we budget so much every year that, so, in 10 years that we already have that money. Are we going to do something like that also?
Go ahead, Brent. I think we could probably look at maybe in the future setting up some form of a reserve fund, I'm sure, but go ahead, Brent.
Through your worship, yeah, so the idea with one of the benefits of having the red brick looking paint is that if there happens to be some spalling, it doesn't look like a scar on the side of the building because it's not going to be quite as visible. But the idea would be if we're going to do this and we're going to spend $120,000 on this painting the building, is that we really need to have a preventative maintenance program in place so that we look after things as they happen, not wait 25 to 50 years before we spend any significant money on it.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I'll make mention too, I think we're going to put some real flagpoles up in the front in the not too distant future as well. So I think that'll, and I shouldn't say the front, I should see on the Center Street side. It's not the front of the building, but the Center Street side. So, so there are some plans in the works for that as well. So, so we can get what we call a flagpole off the roof. So, is there anything else? Seeing none, we look for a motion to note and receive the 2023 overview and 2024 work plan from the Market Square Advisory Committee, and that council direct the Market Square Advisory Committee mandate be continued for 2024 and that no changes be made to the membership structure. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Norrie. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, and I believe that's yours, Councillor Norrie. Did you want to start? I don't know if we have a staff member here for that, or do we? I don't think so.
No, she's at a sunny island right now. So.
Okay, we'll.
So we had a meeting on April 2nd to discuss all this, and we're quite happy with the mandate. We're getting things slowly done as other committees, and the music's a go. So status quo is good for this committee. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Norrie. Is there any questions or comments of Councillor Norrie with respect to the arts and culture? Seeing none, and I think you've still got lots of bodies there as far as, and I should have asked Councillor Pennell, but I think I knew the answer anyways with respect to quorum and stuff. So you've got enough people in your committee to make it run, I guess.
Yes, I think we've had twice due to weather or whatever. We've had a non-quorum, but we always have a quorum and a lot of interest. So thank you.
Yeah,
sir.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Is there any other questions or comments for Councillor Norrie? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the 2023 overview and 2024 work plan from the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, and further that council direct that the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee mandate be continued for 2024 and that no changes be made to the membership structure. Moved by Councillor Norrie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. There's no further comments, questions, or concerns. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Heritage Advisory Committee, and I believe Councillor Martin, that's yours, and I think Madam Clerk can probably supplement it. Councillor Martin, that what he doesn't cover. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll let Jessica add to it, but our committee, I think, is on track, I believe, to fulfill our legislated and mandated commitments. Madam Clerk keeps us on track on that, and our number of events, we're working on them for the year, and I don't think we're going to have any issues as far as that goes. So we're looking for pretty much the status quo. We did have a couple of resignations, but we started with 9, so we're only down to 7 now, I believe it is. We could go down to 5, but we've got 7, so we're fine with that. So I'd like to leave everything as it is currently.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Martin. And Madam Clerk, did you wish to weigh in at all?
Through your worship, yeah, the only reason for the request to officially reduce the membership is that with Councillor Martin, we started with 10, so quorum is 6, and now we only have 7 members. So we can really only have one person miss the meeting unless we officially shrink the size of the committee. Certainly, if there are more people who are interested, I would recommend opening it back up. But legislatively, we only need 5 people there. So we're well comfortably within that. But just for helping us make our quorum for meetings. If we could officially shrink the size, that would be helpful.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Madam Clerk. I think that probably makes a lot of sense. And if we find that that's not working, we can always reopen it and advertise. But I think that makes a lot of sense in the world. So, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I would agree with what Madam Clerk says. I just, with some of the events planned, we're obviously going to be asking for some volunteer help as well. And we don't seem to have any difficulty in obtaining that. So as long as that goes along, we'll be okay on that.
Great. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. So is there any other questions or comments with respect to the Heritage Advisory Committee? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the 2023 report and 2024 work plan from the Municipal Heritage Committee, and further that council direct that the Municipal Heritage Committee mandate be continued for 2024, and further that the council direct that the size of the Municipal Heritage Committee be officially reduced to 7 members for the remaining of the term, but that additional members may be appointed should they express interest. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. The Recreation Advisory Committee, and I believe Deputy Mayor, is that yours? Did you want to start off?
Yeah, so far, we've had one resignation since this committee started. It's a brand new committee that's taken form. We've also created an ad hoc committee to take over the trails portion of it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a wrap-up meeting kind of thing before this meeting here to see exactly where everything's at. I know the ad hoc committee for the trails are getting back to us the first part of July. But we've got a lot of things we've started on. I think everything's going along smooth. It took a little time to get things kind of ironed out and figured out which direction we were heading. But I think everything's good with the mandate letter, and the work we've got going on is pretty decent. The Recreation Committee takes on a wide range of aspects, which makes it a little more difficult. And I'm looking at the hours that are invested by staff for this, and I want to thank staff for all the work they have put into it and the work they are doing. I didn't realize the staff time that was tied up with this committee. So, anybody got any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Great. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Calver. And yes, I fully expected, because it was a new committee and because it had a fairly wide swath, that there's probably going to be some growing pains and some challenges, I guess, associated to it, but it sounds like it's moving along well. So does anybody have any? Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you to Deputy Mayor Calver. I'm happy to hear you report that the ad hoc committee for the trails are going to meet and come back. Do you know what kind of a report that they're going to give us, or is it a progress moving forward, or is it just an update of what is there now? Thank you.
I think Mr. Zetterberg, I think you're the staff member that's assigned to that. I think so you may be able to comment.
To your worship, so it's been a year, so it has been a struggle. The committee is still looking for that longer route to Strathcona to make some recommendations. They've looked at multiple routes to get there, a lot of it over public roads, road allowances, and some of it even may require negotiation on some private land. So that's been difficult. The in-town portion is a little bit easier because there's been multiple in-town trails, paths that have been identified. So the council, or the committee will be coming forward with a recommendation for the first phase of that. But what the staff commitment to those committee members right now is to provide background information for their next meeting so they can start formulating their formal presentation to council, which will be in July.
Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a follow-up through you. My only concern is, as you mentioned, Mr. Zetterberg, is it has been a year, and or it's been a long time, and I'm just concerned about that bridge and MTO coming through. If we don't lay ownership to that and show a positive purpose for that bridge, that we're going to lose it. And bridges aren't cheap to build, so I'd like to to lay ownership to that there's a great purpose to keeping it.
Through your worship, the disposition of the bridge and the rails on the entire route will be addressed in that report as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Pennell. Go ahead, Deputy McAlver.
Just a question for Mr. Zandenberg. In that report, have they also, they actually had a quote done for removal of the rails, is that correct?
Through your worship, yes, we received a quote from a company out of Welland to remove the rails, and the value of the rails at that time, which was last fall, was $200,000. That doesn't mean that's what and with the work that had to be done, it was a fairly broad quote as far as preparing the in-town portion, the bed, getting rid of the ties. So the money back to the municipality was $40,000 out of the 200.
Thanks, thanks, Brant. Is there any questions or comments, further comments? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the 2023 report and 2024 work plan from the Recreation Advisory Committee, and further that council direct that the Recreation Advisory Committee mandate be continued for 2024 and that no changes be made to the membership structure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. The Pool Committee financial request. I think, Ms. Hamill, you're going to start off with that one. So go ahead. Whenever you get settled, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you have a staff report in front of you that outlines the fact that the pool request is not included in the 2024 budget. If council does wish to commit to this expense, there will be a couple of options. One is that we can look to take from our existing reserves, and the second is to look at recommitting existing commitments in the 2024 budget to reallocate the funds to this priority, should council choose to do so.
Thanks, Alan. Is there any questions or comments with respect to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Council, I just want to point out that if you had a chance to read what the Aquatics Committee's mandate letter was, and the item is, as an immediate priority, undertake a feasibility assessment of an indoor pool or multi-purpose use community recreation facility with an indoor pool. And what we've done is actually the Aquatics Committee asked Chris Brown, Manager of Facilities and Aquatics Committee Staff Liaison, to contact Leisure Plan International, who created the 2018 Aquatics Feasibility Study for us, to establish the steps in required to update the 2018 plan to current dollars. A proposal of October 2nd of 2023 from Leisure Plan International has been provided to the Aquatics Committee, and a motion was made at the Pool Committee to bring it forth to council. There was a cost of $15,000 plus tax, and that is what we're asking for. As you know, we were denied monies to have concept drawings done through this budget year. We accept that. But as a priority in our mandate letter, we stepped out to do that, and there's a cost associated with this. There's a great fear moving forward, as we'll see a little bit later as well, with the change to our mandate letter, is that no movement towards this pool we're going to see a lot of resignations and possibly a huge stoppage in going forward with an indoor multi-use facility. So the Aquatics Committee is just asking what we were asked to do. We're coming back, we've done it, and now we're asking for council to support us. Our recreational master plan, 92% of the people that were polled stated that an indoor pool is something that Napanee needs. There's over 500 homes draft approved for this community, and it would be it'd be wrong for us to imagine that those homes are going to be sold to people that already live here. So there's going to be outside people coming to our community that aren't softball and hockey players. So we need to go with the times. We're so far behind on this, and it's going to take years to bring this forth, but there's no such thing as tomorrow, because tomorrow becomes today. We just can't keep putting it off. And I'll talk about I'll talk about the surrounding pools a little bit later on this, but again, I just want to go back and reiterate that the mandate letter asked for us to do it, and we did it, and there's a cost associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brunel. Is there any other comments or questions? I guess the only question I would have is, and I know that there's probably nothing written in stone, realistically, and maybe Ellen, you can help me with this. What is the life expectancy or the expiry date on a leisure plan aquatics feasibility study? I know we had one done in 2018. I don't know how much has changed since then, but for argument's sake, if we were to authorize one today, what's the lifespan of that? And I may be asking a question I don't have the answer to, but maybe I see Mr. Satterberg leaning forward here, so.
Through your worship, the pricing done in the original study was pre-COVID. And as we know, prices have changed since that time. So if any serious discussion on moving forward, it would be a good idea to have something done to update the numbers from that feasibility study.
And I think I'm probably fully aware of that, but what I'm thinking is going forward is I know we've got a very, very large infrastructure project that is going to come front and foremost, called a wastewater treatment plan or wastewater treatment facility, which has a whole lot of zeros associated to it. I don't think we're quite in a position as to how we're going to fund that, if I'm not mistaken. I know that we are currently in the process of looking for some help from our provincial and federal partners. We do have a little bit of help from our federal partners at this point. And I know this isn't probably going to be a popular decision or a popular statement, but because it would also appear as though we're kicking this thing down the road, but we're facing an extremely large investment with respect to infrastructure, in which I'm hoping that we're going to have some answers in the coming weeks, if not months. But prior to 2025, I'm thinking we should have a better idea as to where we sit with respect to that infrastructure investment. I'm wondering if this, if it wouldn't be prudent to have the aquatics leisure plan feasibility study done in 2025 when we know where we sit with respect to our infrastructure investment called a wastewater treatment plant. And I know it's a bit, it isn't popular, and it doesn't sound that we're prioritizing a wastewater treatment plant over a aquatics facility, which I do believe our community wants and needs. However, just like running your own household, sometimes we got to prioritize. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be prudent for us to prioritize at this point, at least until we know where we sit with that. But that's just my opinions, and I'll look for some more comments after that. Go ahead, Councilor Brunel.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, as much as I respect your comments in regards to this, the difference that I see between the two projects is that we already have a shovel in the ground for the wastewater, and that's going forward. With the Aquatics Committee, we have nothing, we don't even have drawings. So we are so far out on this project that if we keep putting it off, like I said, if we put it off to tomorrow, where there is no such thing as tomorrow, it just never is going to get done. And I think that if we grasp the concept and we start working on this, that's in actual fact, in reality, the wastewater pollution plant will be over before we even put a shovel in the ground. Well, at least we'll have forward motion on this. I do believe that whatever decision is made today, whether it's on this and our mandate letter, that we're going to take a huge step backwards, probably like a 12-year step backwards. So I urge council to please really think about this It's not as if we need the, whatever it's gonna be, Kingston's, Loyalist $49.5 million pool. I'm not asking for 49 million today or how we're gonna fund that. I'm asking for the $15,000 so we can see how much we are gonna have to fund. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Did Councillor Norrie?
Yes, I know money's tight, but I have to agree with Councillor Pennell that this poor committee's been around for 12 years and been kicked to the side so much. I think for 15 grand plus tax, we should see what it's going to cost post-COVID, because that has changed a lot, as you pointed out. But I think then if it's way out of realm, then they'll even know. And then we can decide which way we're going. But I think 15 grand is a good investment to find out where we stand. So I will be supporting Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Councillor Norrie. Councillor Hicks and then Councillor Shank.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Dave, Councillor Pennell, a quick question for you. Has there ever been any consideration to an outdoor pool constructed to allow the provision of turning it into an indoor pool at some point? I think this is something that, that maybe could be looked at. As I look around the room, there were a number of us that swam in an outdoor pool every summer. Check out the history lessons and what's going on in Napanee, and you'll see people fondly remember the old rotary pool. I'm wondering if this is something that could be investigated.
Through your worship.
Go ahead, Councillor Pennell, sorry.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Hicks. Absolutely, we've looked at this, but what we also feel is if we're going to be spending the monies, is that we look at the broader picture. I was fortunate enough to go down to London to take a look at their new facility, multi-use facility, and my eyes were opened up where they have a gymnasium, they have after-school programming for the kids, they have a kitchen for cooking classes, for people to learn how to cook, and also for people to upgrade their skills. There's, as I say, an after-school program. It was just fantastic. And of course, there was an aquatics facility as well. And this is something that we would be interested in having here in Napanee, because in our strategic plan and in our recreational plan, we could knock off a couple of items with that, with having something for the children to do after school as well, or some place for them to go hang out. Another place for maybe pickleball in the gymnasium for seniors, or whoever else is in that, volleyball stuff. It's just unlimited to our imagination of what could be done at that. And I think to answer your question of putting an outdoor pool would solve the pool issue, but only during good weather and during the summer months, whereas we're looking to have something year round, and also for therapy as well. So there's a lot of boxes that can be checked off by having a multi-use facility.
Councillor Hicks.
Fair enough, but I have one further question. How many people walk to the soon to be Best in Bash Arena, Strathcona Paper Center? So this is, I have been giving this lots of thought, believe it or not, because it's a legit request, and I know there's a lot of interest. I think if we are to if this proceeds and you're looking at putting in an indoor swimming pool with, I mean, I think there's already a gym there, privately owned, mind you. But when you start talking about after-school programs, now you're talking about busing, because there is not a single parent, as far as I know, that would allow their child to walk along Jim Kimmett Boulevard. There's no sidewalks. There's not a bicycle lane. It's like the 401. If there's anybody that does the speed limit out there, I'd be shocked, probably myself included on occasion. It's not a walk-to facility, so I think there's going to have to be some also discussion and provision made for upgrading infrastructure to allow alternate transportation there. You have a high school, but none of the high school kids are going to walk to the pool. So it's all going to be car dependent for starters. You're not going to get And I know I'm revisiting the rotary pool, but it's not like you hop on your bike and you ride through town for 3 blocks to get to the pool, or even 10 blocks where it's relatively safe and you can take the side streets. We're talking major arterial roads, which are not conducive to pedestrian or bicycle traffic. So that is something that should also be, I think, factored into whatever is done.
Thanks, Councillor Hicks, and I think Councillor Shank.
I'd love nothing better to have a pool. You know what I mean? That's, I think it'd be great for the kids, great for everybody, but everybody in this council should know where we are financially. You have to play within your means of what you can do and what we can't. We have a lot of unfinanced capital that we're gonna have to finance. You have exactly what the mayor has stated about their sewage plant. All right, if that isn't upgraded, well, those 500 new homes that are going in, you can't have 500 new homes if you don't have the infrastructure there. Where are we raising more money to pay for this? All right, and we're talking millions of dollars, because pre-COVID, the price was what, Brant? Pre-COVID, the ballpark for just a bare bones pool enclosed.
Through your worship, some of it was at $400, but most of it was in the high 300 range. And now it's in the 600s for commercial builds. Well, for commercial building, the cost per square foot is hovering around the $600 mark. That's right. And pre-COVID, you could have said around $400.
How much is the pool? Build a pool, put a pool in the ground for $600 per square foot. Yeah. So the point is what I'm saying is where is this council? All right. I know what we've done, Dave. Like, I mean, there's nothing straight. You didn't want the best. There was going to bring more money. The budget, there was, you know, all I'm saying is we have to generate more if you're going to spend more. But the reason why we had to generate more, in our last budget, we put $1 million down into reserves. We were at around 14.5. You're down to less than 3. Our coffers aren't really super full here. All right. So what we have to do is we're going to have to build those coffers back up with the bills that are going to be coming in. All right. I would love nothing better to go ahead and have a pool, but that's a luxury. And the problem is I have to deal with my brains, not my heart right now. I would love nothing better to have a heart. All right. And have a pool here, but I can't fiscally go ahead and afford it. So right now there's no possible way. It's not so much building it as to operating it and what's going to cost. So at this time, with how many millions and millions of dollars of sewage plant, the 99 advance, the $5 million that has to be, there's so much unfinanced capital that was spent that it's going to have to, when our treasurer says, guys, you're going to have to be careful here. I have to go understand what our treasurer is saying, you know? So I'd love nothing better to do it, but just at this time, I can't see it happening, you know?
Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Yeah, through you, your worship. I'm just looking at the cost back in 2018. I think it was a total bill of $14.6 million for a multi-use fitness facility. You can probably imagine that's probably 28 to 40,000 at today's rates and pricing. I would like to support the $15,000 spend to see where we're going to be at. But I do agree until we get this sewage plant looked after where we can have more growth, I don't foresee a pool in our immediate future, although I do agree it is an evil necessity, but it has to be something, again, affordable. And I just don't foresee that, but I would like to see some up-to-date numbers.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Norrie.
Sorry, I think I missed something. I thought we were worrying about just 15,000 to see if it's possible. That's not worrying about busing, no disrespect, or multi-purpose, just to find out, do an investigation. And we can go around for hours doing this and do what ifs, but I support the 15,000. I think we can find that to find out if it's even feasible. And the public might say no, F and away, and that's it. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, Councillor Norrie. I think the reason we went down the trail that we did is because the last leisure plan aquatics facility was a 2018 report that puts us into 2023, 2024. Realistically, if we do another one 5 years from now in 2029, are we going to be looking to spend another 15 or 20 or 25,000 for another feasibility report? The reality of it is that are we in a position that if we get the numbers, do we need to spend $15,000 to get the numbers to say, geez, we can't afford this until we find out what it's going to cost for a waste treatment plant? And that's, I guess that's my thinking on it is that I'm just trying to be realistic here in the fact that at this point, we have an extremely lot of large numbered unknowns. And without some serious help from some partners, maybe we end up with a pool without a wastewater treatment plant. I don't know, but that's I think why we went down that road is that, and that's why I asked the question that I asked is what is the expiry date on a feasibility study? And if that feasibility study doesn't get us to where we need to be, will we be doing another one in another 5 or 6 years? So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Through your worship, to Councillor Pennell. If we put this $15,000 spend off until next year, put it in 2025, once we figure out where we are with this wastewater plant, would that change things at all or change things much? I realize it is kicking it down the road another year, but just a question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Through your worship, to answer Deputy Calver's question, you know, the last council awarded the Aquatics Committee $75,000 for drawings. This council denied that. My fear is that if we put anything down the road or put it to tomorrow, it's not going to come to nutrition or the pool. There was a comment of that this is a luxury item. It's not a luxury item. It's the quality of life. It's quality of life for our residents on this. Whatever we do today is only going to shorten up what we do in the future because, guys, this council is not going to see a shovel in the ground for this. There's so much work to be done on this. Councillor Shank asked how much the pool is going to cost. I don't know. That's why I'm asking for $15,000 so we can find out what it's going to cost after COVID. You know, I'm just going to go back. This town is growing and it's growing. Our demographics are growing. They're coming from, the people are coming from all different walks of life. And we need to provide a quality of life for the people that are coming here. The Loyalist pool is shut down and it's going through a major retrofit right now. Kingston has put towards the dollars there because 18.5% of their residents use the Loyalist pool. In 2030, the Kingston is going to be wanting another pool for themselves. Quinte is at capacity. We don't have anywhere to go. The Aquatics Committee has investigated where to send people to. There is nowhere to go. So for using the pool and having a pool being used, it will happen here. But we need to start from the ground up, and we're not even there. We don't have drawings. We don't have anything. We have an outdated feasibility study. We have an aquatic, in a recreation plan. It's stated, number one is an aquatics facility. We paid people from the outside of this community to come in here with a fresh set of eyes to come up with this study. We might as well just say that's nice and throw it off to the side. Why do we go and we do these studies and then we not follow through with them? Why don't we believe what's read? I just think that we need to spend the money to find out where we are. And as the mayor said, it might be a number that is not even acceptable to the Aquatics Committee, but how do we know until we find out? Right? It's a small ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Norrie.
Just because we're going on the table, can I make a motion that we authorize the 15,000 plus tax to be determined how paid through our CFO, either one or two, whatever the best option is?
You're more than welcome to. We can still have further discussion if you wish,
Seconder, of course, yes.
of course.
Thank you.
So you would like to make the motion that council approve financial request and direct funding come from either reserves or reduction of expenses elsewhere. Council to direct which service to be reduced. Moved by Councillor Nori, seconded by Councillor Pennell. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor Pennell.
Through your worship, could we have a recorded vote on this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Madam Clerk, just before we get to the recorded vote, I just want to comment, and go ahead, Councillor Shank, and then I'll comment.
See, I don't believe anybody here does not want to not have a quality of life or whatever for a pool. But the point is all I can stress is that if you knew it was going to cost 15 or $20 million, pre-COVID, it's going to be a lot higher than that after COVID. I agree with what the mayor is saying, wait till next year before you do the study to see where we are better financially. Of what we've had to spend and what our tax rate now is. All right. We had to have the 6% and plus with the bag tags that we had to do because our cost for garbage went from $400 and some $1,000, all right, to $1.6 million, So all I'm saying is when you figure out all these costs that have gone up, an average Joe would go ahead and say, well, look at all the new buildings that are going on, new this. So our assessment should be going, so we should be all flush with money. But you know what our payroll is for the town of Greater Napanee? I think it's around $8.6 million. All right. So when you figure in what all our expenses are and what do we have extra and the roads that you see on Facebook or whatever, the amount of rain and the amount of potholes and they're not getting tarred and chipped and everything else, those residents that live on those bad roads, if you ask them, would you much rather have a tar and chip road or would you much rather have a pool? Very likely they would be saying, I'd like to have a road to get to my entrance. If we don't start putting money back into our roads and into our infrastructure, all right, and those things, we can't afford the $15 million right now. Would I love nothing better to say so? Yes, but we have a lot of unfinanced capital that we're going to have to finance. So guys, all I'm saying is it's not that I'm against the pool. Don't get me wrong. I'd love nothing better to go to build a pool for our residents. But if I'm talking about roads or infrastructure and sewage, you know what I mean? And I agree with what the mayor is saying if you're going to spend it, let's just back it. I know it's backing it up again. All right. Going till next year before we go ahead and see where we are. If we're successful in any of the grant money, all right, for our sewage, what we are doing financially, all right, and what other options we are with grants or anything else. So can we do this or can we not? But I hate to spend money, all right, on something where I know the outcome is going to be more than our proposed pre-COVID numbers that I know that, well, there's no way we'll be able to afford to put it in until next year to say, hey, okay, hey, yes, we've got this bill paid, that bill paid, this is what we can do financially and this is where we are. It just gives us a better footing of where we're going to be, all right, and what we have at the time. So that's the last thing I'll say about it.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shank. Deputy Mayor Calver.
Through your worship to Councillor Pennell. Back in 2018, when this study was done, was there any talk of how much we needed to have up front to be able to apply for a grant? Can you give me a breakdown of how the grant funding was looking at? Was it a 50% grant or?
Through your worship to Deputy Calver, I'm going to let Mr. Zadberg talk on numbers on that sort of thing. But we had applied for a grant, but we don't even have drawings. We don't have a design. We don't even have, and from those designs, from the drawings, from the designs, then you get a good cost estimate for what the pool is going to be. It was a little bit embarrassing when we went for the grant because we had none of that. We had nothing to supply along with a backup for that. So to answer your question, I'm gonna put it over to Mr. Zeiderberg for that, sir.
Thank you.
To your worship, the grant that we applied for at that time was 33 1/3 between municipality, the province and the federal government. That split does not exist right now. So probably the best we could look for as far as a grant would be 50% at this point.
Okay, so if we were looking at a $30 million bill, we'd have to have $15 million somewhere. Okay, thank you.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Loyalist applied for that as well, and they were not successful. And they had the hole in the ground and everything, so, okay. I just want to comment to Councillor Pennell with respect to the Recreation Master Plan is those are very important guiding documents. But the biggest flaw I've found with those plans is they don't tell us how we're going to pay for it. They tell us that the community needs it. They tell us that the community will use it, but they do not tell us on how we can afford it. And that's the biggest problem. And it's almost like my granddaughter's Christmas wish list, that she tells me that she wants this and this and this and this and this and this and this. However, Santa Claus can't always do all those things. So that's my biggest, I think that the master plan is a good master plan. I think it identifies what our municipality needs. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us what we really need to know, which is how we're going to pay for it and how we're going to run it. I mean, I think it also makes reference to trail systems, if I'm not mistaken, on the master plan. And it doesn't tell us how we're going to pay for that either. So in any event, I just wanted to make mention of that from my last reading of it. Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
Through you, your worship. So we did a survey, and I don't know how many respondents there were, but I think you said 99%. 99 out of 393 respondents. Okay. So 393 respondents, population will say 16,000. So, and I did read the report from 2018. So an operational deficit just on the aquatic facility, not on the multi-use center, is $400,000. It's one thing to build the pool, build it and they will come. But will they come in the numbers that are going to support the operation of the pool? And I know we can open it up to other municipalities. For instance, there's some people in Loyalist that would come to Napanee because it's closer. It's an easier drive. Same with Hastings. But when people, and when I say people, when the taxpayers say, we want a pool, I want my kids who are only going to be here for another 10 years before they move off somewhere else, go to university, to have swimming lessons. I absolutely 100% agree. But do they understand the cost, the ongoing year-over-year cost that is involved in that? So in 2018, it was estimated at a $400,000 deficit. Where does that money come from? Are those same taxpayers willing to buy, are they going to buy a membership fee, or are they going to go pay for use? Because membership fee implies that you're going to be there every day, but really they only want to take their kids swimming on Saturday. When we look at these things, the taxpayer has to understand this. To do the feasibility study, $15,000, we can say yes to it. But are we really fully prepared to put the shovel in the ground? And is the implication being the implications to the taxpayer after the pool is built clear to the taxpayer? Because somebody has to pay for it, and that will be the taxpayer. I think that's what the taxpayers need to understand. This isn't free.
Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. To answer Councillor Hicks' question, that's what will all be determined in the feasibility study, is how much a facility would cost of this magnitude, and of course what deficits are. Anything in recreation we don't break even on, I'll steer you back to our 2024 budgets and take a look at what the arena is doing. It's definitely not making money. So again, it's back to quality of life, and for $15,000, your questions will be answered. I'm sorry, that certainly didn't sound right, but I'm just saying that in the feasibility study.
If I may.
Yeah, no, go ahead,
Councillor Pennell, I understand this is a true passion project. 12 years. This is pre-election, never mind pre-COVID for you in particular. So I do understand. Yeah, I just, no worries.
Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns? We do have a motion on the floor. We'll call for a vote on the motion. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I ask Councillor Pennell if the committee considered, since it's not a large amount, $15,000, did the committee consider setting up an account, fundraising at all to kind of show that there is interest in having a pool and there are people are willing to put money where their mouth is? I just wondering that, you know, if that's a possibility to do that with the 15,000 because it's not a large amount, and just to show some knowledge of that.
All right, go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Martin. So in the last council, it was approved that there be a reserve fund set up and monies be put into it, and that never came to nutrition. For some reason, whether it was COVID that stopped or whether it was an internal decision, that never came about. But also in the mandate letter, it clearly states that the committee is not to do any fundraising until council has a definite go-ahead on it, that council provides a definite go-ahead on this project. And I kind of see the reason for it. If we ask the public for money and we put it into a reserve fund and this never comes about, then it's kind of misleading as to here, please contribute to an aquatics reserve fund, and that never comes about. It's not really fair. But we did ask for the reserve fund to be set up, but it never happened. And it's clearly stated in our mandate letter not to do any fundraising. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pennell. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, I really want to support a pool. Everybody thinks we need a pool. I think we need a pool. We just don't have the capacity right now, the funding to advance that far. And I'm concerned about spending even $15,000 that's going to be wasted if we're going to be another 10 years, 12 years down the line before we even talk about having the pool again. So I'm concerned about that $15,000, even though it's a small amount, it's still $15,000. So I'll have to be against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Alan, I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Based on our 2018 feasibility study and the numbers that are in that, I know there's a big assumption here, but if we assume those numbers, is it possible you could give us an idea as to where we would be at, not today and maybe not next week? Is it possible you could give us an idea where would we be at before we spend $15,000 on a feasibility study? I mean, the feasibility study is going to tell us what it's going to cost to build an arena or build a pool. Sorry. We would still come back to you to say, can we afford to do this, or are we in a financial position to do this? And is that something that? And I'm just throwing this out there for conversation. Is that something that you would have the ability, or do you have enough information with respect to that? And if not, then I'll move on. We'll just call for the vote. So.
Thank you. So through you, well, I suppose to you, we can certainly look at isolating just the numbers and putting those into today's dollars. That's something we could come back to council with. But it's not going to consider anything else that goes into the feasibility study as it relates to, you know, usership and population and growth and all of that information. But certainly we could look at those two numbers, the 9.9 million and the 14.6 million, and estimate those at today's dollars.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if that's something that anybody wants to entertain or not, but I threw it out there for conversation. I don't know if there's any other conversation that wants to happen, but go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
I do have a question for Councillor Pennell. I know that in the mandate letter, I think that's the one I have open at the moment, there was some discussion about talking to local hotels, which contain Class B pools to provide, if nothing else, swimming lessons or, okay, Mr. Zatterberg.
Go ahead, Brent.
Through your worship, that has been explored in the past. Unfortunately, the operational requirements for a hotel pool are completely different than a municipal pool. And for example, even just the chlorination of the water is different levels at a hotel pool than there is for a municipal pool. And when it was discussed in the past with the health unit, the answer was no.
Yep, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, Councillor Hicks. I'm sorry, also to the liability for insurance, if we talked about that. But if you have a moment to just look at my mandate letter review that I put through, how we constructed this letter, how the Aquatics Committee constructed it, was we took our mandate and we dissected it into paragraphs, and every part of the mandate, we put the mandate and then what we did for actual. So we did actually look into that as well. And we also looked into going and, renting space at other facilities, which is just not going to happen because they're at capacity for their own residents and that sort of thing. So we did everything that we possibly could with our mandate. And depending on what the vote is going to be here, is we're going to have to ask for a new mandate letter as well, and see what kind of direction that you want, what direction the council wants the Aquatics Committee to go into.
And I think that probably is going to be our next conversation when we're done with this one. So, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Yeah, through your worship. Yes, I'm glad somebody brought that up about the the recommendation in the Recreation Master Plan, because that is on page 65 to, to look out and reach out to hotels and stuff. Well, just simple accessibility alone is completely different for a public pool versus a hotel pool. But also keep a note on page 62, it also talks about the Strathcona paper. Back in, this was done, it was approaching its 20-year mark, and it's got a 30-year end of plan period. So, I mean, there's another thing coming up. Dave, I know Councillor Pennell, I know you're very passionate about this, as you know I am too. I'm a longtime supporter of the pool. I grew up with the Rotary pool. I fully believe we do need a pool, but unfortunately, we need to build our reserves up. We need to get things in order first before we even consider. And as much as everybody's saying it's only 15,000 to find out, I'm not an engineer, but I can look at these numbers and from 2018 and know that it's way beyond our capacity at this moment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any other conversations? And we've had an extremely good conversation. We've had an extremely honest conversation. Is there anything else that needs to be said, or anybody else, any other comments? If not, we'll call for the vote. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell. Thank
you, Worship. One last comment. We're not looking for today, we're looking for the future, but we have to start today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Is there anything, sorry, go ahead, Madam Clerk. Yeah, I'm going to hand the reins over to you right smartly here. So is there anything else before we call for the vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Through your worship, so just to confirm for everyone, the motion that has been put on the floor was that council receive the report for information, and further that council direct that the $15,000 be authorized for the updated feasibility study, with the treasurer to recommend the best method of funding the budget amendment, either through reserves or through other service cost reductions. I believe that was the motion that was made. So starting at this end, Ward 1, Councillor Shank. Okay.
No.
Ward 2, Councillor Hicks.
No.
Ward 3, Councillor Pennell.
Yes.
Ward 4, Councillor Norrie.
Yes.
Ward 5, Councillor Martin.
No.
Deputy Mayor Calver.
No.
Mayor Richardson,
No.
that motion is defeated.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on, the Pool Advisory Committee. Councillor Pennell, I believe that you may want to start.
Thank you, Worship. If everybody on council has had a chance to look at our mandate letter, as I just mentioned earlier, or our review of the mandate letter, we took the mandate that was provided to us and we separated it into what the mandate was and what the actual was of what the pool has done. The Aquatics Committee has done. And we've done it all. And it came down to just what our last vote was, is to ask for the monies for that. So I ask you now that we've done our mandate letter, what now? What do you want us to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennell. Who wants to start? Does anybody want to start? I guess I can start the conversation off because I seem to generate some conversation. I know that the city of Kingston, and we spoke about this just a few minutes ago, have put a fairly large investment into the Loyalists pool. I'm guessing that the reason they did that is because they don't have the facilities to cover the programming that they have in the city of Kingston. Have we looked at turning over every stone with respect to setting up programming, but using somebody else's facility? I know that when Loyalists actually shut their doors, my granddaughter ended up going over to Picton. And so we were making weekly trips to Picton. I don't know how those arrangements come to be, whether Picton has stepped up and said this, we'll take some of the programming from Loyalist. But have we uncovered every stone with respect to setting up some form of programming that we can sort of kickstart this thing with respect to getting people into the pools, whether it's in Belleville, whether it's in Picton, whether it's obviously not going to be in Loyalist this year, but and I would suggest that if Kingston is farming some of their stuff out to Loyalist, then I don't think Kingston would have those facilities either. But what is that a feasible direction forward, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So go ahead.
Through your worship, thank you for that question. What the Aquatics Committee has done is reached out to see if we could rent blocks of time for our community. And as you were just mentioning, local area pools are also getting at capacity. So that was a hard no. And however, we could provide transportation now that we have the Desrono Transit, Napanee Transit. We could provide transportation or stop at their locations, say the Quinny Wellness. However, that's not going to guarantee that they could get into the programming. It would be first come, first serve, and I do believe that their own residents will come take top priority on that. There's definitely we could look farther into it to do other things outside of where that transit already is running. We have addressed the we went and talked to the Boys and Girls Club in Kingston on that, but talks had stalled at that time. So there's something that may be there. But also in the mandate letter review that I did, there's also the possibility of looking at Brooks Landing in south of here to make that into a swimming hole, to provide accessibility, parking, washroom facilities, put a floating dock out and rope off and have people swim in Hay Bay. So we have looked at other things, but again, we need council direction.
Great, thanks, Councillor Pennell. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Through your worship to Councillor Pennell, do we still bus people down to the UEL? We don't, because I know that at one point they used to bus people down to the UEL to swim there at that public beach as well.
Yeah, through your worship, to answer Deputy Mayor Calver's question, that's a no. No, we don't do that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any other questions or comments, Councillor Hicks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Does Stone Mill still run the swim program at Beaver Lake?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hicks' question, yes, they do have a swim program. We did look into that as well, and it's more of an hourly program, if you will, and that is with Stone Mills. And we were looking at taking transportation up there. However, there would be long wait times as well, and I will need to get clarification from Mr. Brown, as he has some other information on that as well. So, but we did look into that, and at the time, it was not, it was not, I don't want to use the word feasible, it was not favorable, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So one more question, and I don't know if this is for you, Councillor Pennell, or for Mr. Zatterberg. Lifeguards and instructors, who are usually one and the same, I know at one point there was a severe deficit in the numbers of people that were actually, I'll say, students who were doing this as a part-time job or people who were doing it for a living. Have you heard any further on that?
Yep, go ahead, Brant.
Through you, your worship. Anecdotally, we have heard that it's still difficult for those communities that have pools to have students, as had been done traditionally. It's hard to find those students and keep those students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks and Mr. Zatterberg. Is there any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So does council have any appetite for having any summer program for pool, for, you know, something at Brooks Ferry Landing or the UEL or any other boat ramp, or, you know, the other access that we have that is basically not a boat ramp, but some of those public beaches and public areas that we have? Would they be looking into, you know, hiring, if even is possible, to hire, exactly what Councillor Hicks said, having a lifeguard doing any of those summer programs? You know what I mean? Like, with the, who looks after our summer day program right now? Is that the YMCA or is that the Boys and Girls Club, or?
I think Mr. Zatterberg can answer that, Councillor Shank.
For the last few years, the summer programming has been done through the Boys and Girls Club of Kingston.
Is there any way that the Boys and Girls Club, through some of those facilities that we do have, because if I'm not sure, I don't swim at the UEL campground, all right, but does it still have the buoy system there, or could they possibly, you know what I mean? Like, since we can't afford what we have, can we have something else that will still teach some of the smaller kids, have a summer, you know, summer swimming program that they can, some of the younger ones can learn, you know what I mean? In any of these other ones we did years ago at, you know, at what cost?
Yeah, and I think you're probably heading the same direction I am, Mike, that would this be an opportunity that we focus on the programming aspect of it as opposed to the venue at this point, until such time as we know where we're going to be later on this summer and probably for the 2025 budget? Is that something that Councillor Pennell is feasible with respect to the aquatics programming? Is it something we can focus on? Does it warrant the committee to look further into it, I guess, is the statement I'm trying to make, or maybe Councillor Shank's trying to make.
Through your worship, first I'd just like to make a comment that aquatics is for everybody, not just for kids. So we have to take that into consideration as well. And I understand one of my biggest pet peeves is the amount of water, open water, that we do have in our county, which is phenomenal, is that every kid does need to learn how to swim. But we also have to make sure that everybody needs to be able to swim as well. So that takes into to everybody. You know, again, it's up to council. You can take the mandate letter that we had, and I'm going to say that we fulfilled that. And council's direction was not to move forward on that mandate letter that was provided to us. So I'm asking you for anything, whatever you want to do. If you even want to keep the committee open, give us the direction you want to do, and we'll do it. we looked at some, as I previously stated, we looked at sending people to other facilities. If you look at the summary of the letter that I provided is to have staff look into feasibility of having our transit system, while it's already in Belleville, make a stop at the Quinny Wellness Center. If that program, you know, as more and more we add on to it, we have problems with scheduling and it's going to cost us more. There's a cost associated with anything that we do here. So whether we go to Brooks Ferry and we make that, there's going to be monies involved in that. It might be internally, and not asking council for money for that. If we send them down to, we have to open up negotiations with UAL as well as because it's a public park. There's costs associated with anything on here, so we'll be coming back to you on that as well. If you put that into a mandate letter for us, and of course, we'd be glad to look for a new mandate letter because that's as we consider our other one done. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Zetterberg.
Through your worship, if I may make a suggestion at this point, I think it would be if staff work with those members of the aquatics committee that want to move forward to suggest what the mandate letter should look like. I think it might be a slow build, but I think it's a good idea if there's more than one staff member on this from different areas, and then that we can share some information and come back to council with a mandate, a suggested mandate for moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Zonderberg. Councillor Shank.
The only reason why I'm saying what I would like to promote those, you know, the swimming education for the kids is if we could have some type of swim program with that, if you could look into that, because you know an aquatics facility is not going to happen overnight by any means. So in the meantime, if we have some type of swimming program that the toddlers or the kids, or that they have a better way of learning how to swim or whatever, the way they've done it in the past. So at least we're offering something for the educational component until we have the time and the money, all right, to go ahead and do this. Because if we do nothing, then there's none of the kids that have the access to the waterfront are going to be taught unless they get transported to Picton, like my granddaughter and everybody, like your granddaughter too. But all I'm saying is we have something in place and what that cost would be and whether we could do it. And then at the same time, find out next year where we are financially, what we can do and what we can't do with the feasibility study. And then we can possibly, hopefully, in time when as more money comes in, to see whether it is possible, whether it's not, or whatever. At least we're offering something for the kids to learn how to swim. That's all I'm saying. If you could look at that, that's my train of thought.
And I'm sure that staff have heard all our comments or statements that we've made here today. So is there anything else, or is there any other direction that we'd like to get staff to move in with respect to the aquatics or the pool advisory committee? Seeing none, we look for we have a recommendation that council receive for information the 2023 annual report and 2024 work plan from the pool advisory committee, and further that council provide direction with respect to the mandate of the pool advisory committee for 2024. And I believe unless you want some specific resolutions, has staff got the direction that we're hoping to do to assist with building a mandate for the aquatics or the pool advisory committee?
We do, your worship.
Thank you, Mr. Zetterberg. Madam Clerk.
So through your worship, then if I might suggest that a motion be that council directs staff to work with the committee to develop a draft mandate to be presented to council.
As always, your words are. We have a recommendation. Do we have someone that would like to make that by motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any further comments or questions? And we've had some very honest and some very in-depth conversations with respect to an extremely, extremely difficult conversation today. So I thank everybody for that. Is there anything further? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is the Downtown Advisory Committee. Counselor Hicks, do you want to take a break? Is that what the,
You wouldn't mind. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I think we're going to have an
15?
15-minute break. I think we're going to have an extremely in-depth conversation about this as well. So that's probably a good time to have a break. Thanks, folks. We'll be back in about 15 minutes. Great, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. And we're going to delve right into 4.8 on our agenda, the Downtown Advisory Committee. And I'm thinking, Councillor Hicks, did you want to start with that?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move this closer because I have a feeling my finger's going to be on the button for a while. Okay, so Downtown Advisory Committee. Well, it's been an interesting year. I'm going to save us all a lot of time, I think, in the course of discussion and debate, and just say that this entire mandate needs to be scrapped, for lack of a better word. We need to revisit the structure. We need to open the doors to the broader community of Greater Napanee, I think, in the commission of a new committee. Whether we call it an association, there of course would be a council representation, but I think the people that really need to take ownership of the committee are the people that are going to directly benefit from that. And that is small business owners, farmers. There's a lot of agritourism. I had no idea there are 209 farms registered in Greater Napanee, just in Greater Napanee. 209, that's a lot that would carry the OFA, if I'm not mistaken, sign somewhere on their household. There's a large number of businesses, more than I thought. I found Townfolio on Google, and boy, it's a wealth of information. So I think we need to expand this. There should be Joe Blow resident. There should be a couple of real estate people. There should be business owners, farmers, financial service provider, people who offer a variety of services and businesses. I think it should be opened up. It should be larger. And then it allows for the creation of some subcommittees that would provide very specific things. Fundraising, for instance. People who do nothing but look for grants that will allow for event planning or new signage, or there's too many things to list. A marketing and communications committee where people can post about all the wonderful things in Greater Napanee. I know that Lennox and Addington County, naturally LNA, is a brand. This town needs a brand, and it needs to be updated from Greater for many reasons. Give me all the reasons. So I think this could be some place we could maybe start with coming up with a new brand and marketing. And the third one is events planning. So consolidating, making things more interesting, not just for local people, but for people who are coming from outside, whether it be from a neighboring community or from 3 or 4 hours away. So I know in the letter that Jessica provided, I'm going to jump ahead just slightly, but the potential new advisory committee, there was a statement there, Jessica, at the end where staff could be requested to bring back a more fulsome report. And I really think that needs to happen. We need to know exactly, we shouldn't be paying twice. If something already exists, we should be using it, and we should be using it hard. Like Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing. We pay $26,000. We signed up for 1 year. We pay $26,000. We have the benefit of over $1 million in that marketing board. And I don't think we're using it to its fullest extent as a town. And so I'm hopeful, this is a plug for tomorrow's meeting at 99A Advance, where Doug Stevenson, the executive director, will be there. And hopefully we have a good turnout. But the existing committee, we are down to 5 members. 1 person doesn't show, we have no quorum. So I'm requesting that we revisit the mandate and explore the potential for a new committee setup.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. And I was going to suggest probably 4.8, the discussion that we're having now, and 4.9 could probably be welded together, I think, Madam Clerk. If we have that ability to do that, from what I'm hearing from Councillor Hicks is that try as we might, the Downtown Advisory Committee, we were having trouble to obtain that mandate. But the good that came out of the Downtown Advisory Committee is that it probably has recognized that we need maybe a committee for the whole of Napanee, be it a Greater Napanee Marketing Committee, which would encompass tourism, as Councillor Pennell brought up at our last meeting. I really think the marketing and tourism are probably, they should go hand in hand. And again, maybe it's a chicken and the egg kind of thing, but I don't think to be successful, you can have one without the other, to be quite honest with you. So is that sort of the direction that you would be looking to go in? And we'll listen to some other comments from around the table here as well.
That is the direction. So just, if I just free will here for a moment, we've heard that the, excuse me, the Market Square is getting refreshed. And we're starting with a new paint job. So the red clay brick brings this building, this historic building, back into line with what's surrounding it, which is fantastic. Revitalizing the Center Street approach, if you will. Flagpoles, seating, something to make it inviting. I've heard and read so much about farmers markets and how wonderful they are. Well, the town does not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Zatterberg, but the town is not responsible for running a farmers market. We can facilitate the running of a farmers market, but we will not go out and find the farmers or the vendors. We will not do all the organizing, any of that. That is up to somebody who, or a group of people who have an interest in that. Just let's say it's every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. That gets people downtown on a weekday. That's something, if there's anyone out there, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you. But this is the sort of thing where calendars of events. So certain times of the year, things are very busy. So for instance, Canal Bash in February happens in Newburgh. That little community it is amazing what they do. There's a little bit of spillover to Napanee, but maybe February isn't our gig. Maybe it's Easter weekend. I don't know, but there's the potential to do a lot within the town as a whole, not just downtown Napanee. I shouldn't say that. The urban center being Napanee proper, but Greater Napanee, there's so much on the South Shore. 33 Highway is beautiful. I drove around for 2 hours while my granddaughter slept, and it was quite relaxing, actually. There's lots to see, and there's certainly lots to do, the north part of the town. But where are we going to overlap with what's already being done by other, whether it's the county, et cetera? So all of these things need to be looked at so that we're not wasting time and money. And I think the sooner we can get started on something like this, the better.
Great, thanks, Councillor Hicks, and I'll go to Councillor Shank.
So part of the 4.9 also we can discuss. So
Well, I'm thinking that they're going to end up as one.
Yeah.
The direction I'm hearing from Councillor Hicks.
From what I understand, from what Councillor Hicks is saying, the downtown advisory mandate, it's just not working. So what I would suggest is somebody, this is just my thoughts, is if you have an economic development committee, all right, that looks after the whole of Greater Napanee, that goes ahead and looks into the advertising, what's working, what isn't working. You know what I mean? What can we do? We used to have a chili festival here where the guys used to play, even road hockey here. There was a lot of things that used to be done. All right. But all I'm saying is I would, if you call it economic development committee, it'll work on all aspects of our municipality from one end to the other end. And then you're going to tie in your farmers with this, whatever they might be doing, whatever the festival that they're doing, like in Brighton, they have an apple blossom festival, there's a lot of things that could possibly be done that you could go and people can see or whatever, that get that out in the forefront. all I'm saying, it gives them a broader scope. You know what I mean? When it comes to flowers downtown, they're gonna be looking at that, so that'll tie in the downtown, what they need for their lights and stuff like this. And it just gives them, you're bringing a lot more people than just the downtown advisory. You're bringing other people, what Councillor Hicks is saying, other people from different facets of whatever their businesses are. I think that might be a better approach, you know what I mean? And they're my thoughts, calling it something like that and bringing a mandate that way. So, and working with the Bay of Quinte of what they're doing and what we're doing, and our website, is that up to date? Is that bringing, is that all, looking at all those different aspects? Because there was, if I remember, quote me if I'm wrong, but there was still like a BIA in our website. So all I'm saying is there's no BIA. There hasn't been a BIA in I don't know how long. So all I'm saying is if you have an economic development that looks at all those facets and brings that all into play, I think might be a better approach for the municipality at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Shank. I think you may be right in the fact that, I mean, obviously we're not abandoning our downtown because our downtown is the heart and soul of our community. I like to look at it as we're supplementing our downtown. Tourism and marketing are two important parts. I do think that there are some gaps in what our partners at LNA do, as well as at the Bay of Quinte marketing, and I think we can find a niche in there somewhere. And I agree with Councillor Hicks in the fact that it may be as simple as event planning. Maybe if we get to a point where we're going to create a new committee, that maybe that's the direction that we should be going in. So I think we may be on the right track here. Like I say, I don't want anybody to think that we're abandoning the downtown core, because we're not. I'm sure that if we do create a new committee of some form, that obviously the downtown core is going to be a very important part of that. But we would like to supplement that with some stuff that that may happen in Selby or on 33 Highway or in North Fredericksburg. So in any event, I probably spoke too much too soon, so I'll open it up to the rest of Council to see if there's any thoughts or comments with respect to what Councillor Hicks has related or Councillor Shank has related so far. Go ahead, Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Worship. So I think from what I'm understanding is we just combined 4.8, 4.9. So can I speak about the new committee?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best. I mean, we're going to end up going there anyway, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my whole idea when I suggested that, made the motion to have a tourism committee, we can call it whatever you want. But the whole idea about what we have going on with the county and with the Bay of Quinte Marketing Group is that my whole idea was never to compete with them, but to give them content. They cannot promote what we don't give them. So we're all on this, from what I'm hearing is very exciting, because I seems to be on the same page here, is that we create the content for them to market for us. There were so many things that we used to do here at the Chili Fest, which had the family day with the ball hockey and the events up at the SPC, Riverfront Festival. And I was looking at a picture the other day when we had the canoe tug of wars, and I wanted to bring it up and give it to all council. So sometimes it feels that way where we're both in the same boat rowing different directions, right? But we're going to get there at the end. And this, now we're talking right here, is very refreshing, because we need to create this content. We have this beautiful natural river that runs through our town. We talk about it, but we don't do anything about it. I'm an avid boater. You guys know this. There's this thing in the world called the Great Loop, and it's a 6,000-mile journey on boats, and they go right through Mohawk Bay. These guys are on their boats for a year. They're looking for small towns like ours to visit, and they have money to spend. We have to divert them into our town. By doing that, this committee could look at scanning the river, which we had the budget for, but we used it for something else. So it can get onto electronic navigations, provide them with fuel and pump out. And every year when I take my boat up the Trent, I make Campbellford a destination because they do it so well. And when they greet you, they give you a simple a simple photocopy of the town map with numbers on it to show you where the restaurants are, where the stores are and stuff. A lot of people may visit our downtown conservation park and not know that there's just a restaurant on the hill because it's hard to see. Things like that. This is, again, I'm providing on to what the tourism or whatever this committee can do, but it's just, there's so much other things that we can add to that list of what makes Napanee great again. Well, here, number 99 or number 1, number 2, we have this river, put it on there. And something hit me. That'd be a fantastic thing to have as a contest is why is Napanee great? Let's have it. And we'll pick the numbers and so we can promote that. Why is Napanee great? Well, okay. Number 1, we have a great town council, right? I don't know. I'm just making a joke about that. But there's so many things that this new committee can do, but it's not to compete, it's to provide. And there's lots of stuff that we can provide to create tourism here. And again, I think that's it for now. Thanks.
And great. Thanks, Councilor Fidel. Is there any other comments or questions? Does anybody else want to weigh in? I do think we are on the right track. Go ahead, Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think we are on the right track. I like what I'm hearing from especially Councilor Pennell about the tourism factor. And we do have the 401 running right north of our town, and we need to take advantage of that and get people in here. We also need to upgrade our signage, as far as I'm concerned. We need to have tourist information booth, probably down here in the central area. We need to have brochures with every business that we have in Napanee, greater Napanee, not just downtown Napanee. Maps directing them to those and attractions listed as well. So there is a lot we can do, and there's a lot that committee could do. So I'm excited about that, actually.
Thanks, Councilor Martin. I think the more we talk about it, the more excited we get about it. So is there any other comments or questions or concerns? I guess we do have to deal with this by way of 4.8, 4.9, Madam Clerk. So I guess what we'll do is we'll deal with the Downtown Advisory Committee first. And I guess we'll receive for information. And what I'm hearing is that what's the correct word I'm looking for? We disband? Would that dissolve the Downtown Advisory Committee as it is currently? Would that be the appropriate wording, Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, yes, I believe that would work.
Okay. Is anyone willing to make that by way of motion? Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Calver. Did anybody else want to weigh in at this point? Councillor Hicks?
Just a question for Madam Clerk, if you will. Jessica, if we make this motion and it's carried, should there be some language in there that says, with the provision of council investigating, or does that come after? I would like to make it clear to people that this isn't just, we're dropping you like a hot rock and moving on, which technically in writing we are, but in theory we're not, because it's going to hopefully evolve into something much better.
Through your worship, I suppose I would assume that through the context of dissolving one and then immediately exploring the creation of another, it should be assumed that those two things are connected. But if you
I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to anyone that was watching or chooses to watch later, that with the dissolution of the Downtown Advisory Committee, it's implied that there will be something else brought in to replace it on a broader scale.
Yeah, and I think that's the general direction of the conversation anyways, Councillor Hicks. And we're going to delve directly into new advisory committee once we deal with this as well. So Is there any other questions or comments or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Directly into potential new advisory committee, and I think we've already breached the hill on this one as well. We can have further conversation. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cower.
Yeah, with this potential new advisory committee, what I would like to see is, I've been kicking this cat for a long time to try to get, the businesses in the industrial park included, as there are quite a few retail outlets out that direction. But it would be nice, and I don't know how we could word it or how we could do it when picking the new committee. You take one person from downtown, one person from out of town, one person from this, instead of having, the committee just all of one group. I would hope that that's the way this is going to be done. That would be great.
Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so the intent or the vision is that this is a multidiscipline overarching committee, association, advisory board. We'll have to look at what the correct language is. This meets quarterly. We're thinking this isn't going to be a monthly, but within that, there are subcommittees who would be looking at, okay, your job is, your mandate subcommittee, fundraising committee is go find grants that will allow us to fund signage, events, additional marketing dollars, et cetera. And then there would be a subcommittee for advertising, marketing, communications, if you will, of said events, that sort of thing. And then the event planning, so the fundraising, so then we have event planning. So Chili Fest, Family Day, Easter egg hunt, canoe races, dragon boat races, marathons, this sort of thing. Then that funds that. But the intent is, this is not just to advertise for a business. This is to promote Greater Napanee. And I do need to, and I don't think anyone here will argue with me, at least I hope they won't, is that the health of your downtown business core it's the canary in the coal mine. If your canary is singing loud and proud and it's heard and there's people coming to your downtown, you have a healthy town. When your canary's not singing so loud, your town is suffering overall for that. So the thought was, and again, this was just a thought, and this was based on the two people that were actually there. With the addition of the mayor for 5 minutes as he popped in, it's two from here, two from, say, the financial sector. So somebody that runs a financial consulting business, a real estate agent, because they would have their pulse on the number of the demographics of people moving in. Maybe the town planner, I don't know, but we have to look at getting as many people with as many perspectives as possible on the committee, and then breaking off into the 3 specialized ones, because one person or one committee cannot do everything. And then the recommendations are brought back to council, because council basically holds the purse strings, if you will, for any additional funding that might be needed. And the plus on this is that it wouldn't just be for downtown, if you will. The events could be held all over Greater Napanee, with the spinoff being that what happens one place benefits another.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Hicks. I think that it's imperative that we reach out to as many, even the farming community. I mean, there's a lot of different folks with different views on how to make our municipality alive and prosper, and so I think we're on the right track. So, is there any other comments or questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion, and I will look to Madam Clerk to assist, but I think Madam Clerk has a fairly good idea of note and receive and to instruct staff to create a committee designed to work with our outside marketing agencies to promote and market and tourism within our community, something similar to that, or am I heading in the right track, Madam Clerk, from the conversations that we've had so far? We'll give you a sec to get caught up. It's easier talking than it is typing. Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
So it being an economic development, tourism / committee, whatever, may I ask, is there any monies left in the DAC budget? So, I mean, like, now you disbanded that money there, is that gonna be just rolled over into the new, or was there any money left, or what?
I think Madam Clerk's going to weigh in on, but I will as well.
Through your worship, I suppose I'm really not the right person to be providing this feedback, but I would just note that in the budget, what was presented was the $15,000 was for marketing and events, was what the allocation from council was.
Sorry. So there's $15,000, forgot to hit the button, $15,000 remaining in that budget, and that's gonna be rolled into this new committee?
Yeah, my best guess is that it'll be put back into reserves, but it is a budgeted amount that I think what we need to do first is to see how this new committee is going to be created and to see what their thoughts are. But I'm not so certain. I'm not so certain our treasurer will say roll it directly into that without knowing what we're rolling it into. But I think it probably it's there, I think. It's just, I think we need to see what the new committee looks like first. That would be my guess. Am I on the right track, or am I way off base, Alan?
Thank you. Yes, staff would require direction on how those funds were to be allocated. If they weren't, they would continue to sit in a committee reserve.
Councillor Pennell, and then I'll go to Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I'm just wondering, since those monies were allocated throughout our budget, has there been any movement on planning any of the events so far? Because, you know, you do have to pre-plan and have this out. I'm just cautious of, and I wasn't part of your committee, but I'm just wondering if any work has been done or any promises or commitment letters have been sent out or anything along those lines.
I think Councillor Hicks could probably weigh in on that.
Through your worship, no, there's been no commitments made to anyone as of this particular moment in time. Based on what you've said, Ellen, if the money remains where it is, it can't be spent without council's approval anyway. So could it just be left under the heading DAC for now? Because the downtown shopping party was one thing that does require some, it does require some funding, if you will, as an event. But moving forward, I would like to see things expand, like cars and guitars gets mentioned on a repeated basis. Can some of that money be allocated? Not perhaps this year, because we've already, I think, we didn't start soon enough, and there was no budget for cars and guitars, but next year there possibly could be. But if we can just leave it there, and with the intent that the money would move over into for use under the new committee structure. I'm worried that if it goes into reserves, then it's like if it goes from DAC, the line for DAC, and it goes into reserves, are we going to be able to pull it back out again 2 months from now?
Yes, just to add comment of that. So my concern with leaving under DAC reserve is that committee has now been demolished, or whatever terminology you've used in your previous resolution. But we certainly can keep that earmarked, if you will, for this type of expense. But regardless, it's going to require council direction.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, ladies. Is there any other questions or comments before we enter a motion, which I'm sure Madam Clerk has cleaned up for me? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
So through your worship, and just given this recent discussion, I've got is that council received for information the potential and advisory committee report. Further, council directs staff to report back regarding a potential committee structure and mandate to promote tourism, marketing, events, and economic development. And further, that council directs staff to report back regarding the funding allocation for the Downtown Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Jessica. Sounds good. I would like to add one statement here that the position of CAO, that individual will automatically sit on this committee. Agree?
I think once a committee has been formed and brought back to council, I think we can have those discussions. I think that would be the appropriate time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, but that would be appropriate time then as to once the structure or the formation of it is created, I think that would be the time to do that. So, and of course, ad hocly, I'll sit on it as well. So go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, my understanding is that staff have been listening to the discussion at this meeting today, and all feedback will be incorporated into that report that you are going to receive.
Sorry, it wasn't ad hoc. I used the wrong words there, but we all know what I mean. So we do have a motion. Would anybody like to move that motion, Deputy Mayor Calver?
Yeah, I'll move that motion exactly the way Jessica has it worded.
Perfect. Thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Do we have any other further comments, questions, or concerns or discussions that we want to have with respect to the possible new advisory committee that we're going to form? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We're going to move into a bylaw. We do have a bylaw number 2024-0026, appoint an acting fire chief and interim fire chief. We'll look for a motion to put that bylaw on the floor. Moved by Councillor Pennell, seconded by Councillor Hicks. Is there any discussion we want to have with respect to that bylaw prior to our 3 readings? Ready first, second, and finally passed this 15th day of April, 2023. Sorry.
The 2020.
Oh, sorry, 2024, sorry. I mess it up every time, right? I'm either a year behind or a year ahead. So all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And we'll look for a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of Town of Greater Napanee at a special session of Council held the 15th of April, 2024. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. Ready first, second, and finally passed this 15th day of April, 2024. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And motion for adjournment. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. No further comments, questions, or concerns. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks. We'll see you in about a week or so for our regular session of council.